Hey y'all, what's going on? It's your girl Jay, and it is time for another edition of Mag Flashback. That's right, I'm back with another one. And this time we have Vibe magazine. It is a double issue. It is June and July 1996. And I know my light is blocking it, but it is that a good view? Vibe 1996 June July featuring one of my favorite groups of all time, the Fugees. That's right. So, before we get started, guys, I just want to first thank everyone who has been watching, commenting, giving feedback, whatever. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I want this series to continue to grow. I'll continue to get better. This is all new to me, looking at the camera and recording and all this other stuff. But I do want to say, I want you guys to understand that I do this because it's enjoyable for me. I love looking back at the way things used to be, but understand that a lot of these things were 20, 30 years ago. And I look back at these things and I give my opinion and my experiences because I was there during that time. But also, I was probably 14, 15, 17, 18 years old during some of these things. And I don't remember all that stuff as clear as I probably would have if it was 5 or 10 years ago. And to be honest, my memory's not that great. So who knows if I would remember details, even if they were close in years. So understand, I don't want people to take this too seriously. It is just entertainment. Some things I may say, my memories may be a little fuzzy. I might not get everything precisely right, but I record this in one take and I just sit down and I record and whatever comes to my mind, if I remember, if I don't, that's what you get. So please enjoy these videos, have fun with them. I hope that those of you that were around during this time, it is very reminiscent for you and it's very fun. But y'all, please don't take it too seriously um, because it's just fun. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this magazine. So let me go here. And I might just take myself out of the frame just because y'all know how my allergies are. I'm rubbing my face, touching my face a lot, and y'all want to know what's going on in the magazine. So we'll just do that. So from time to time, if you don't see me in the frame, you know why. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, I put this in here, and of course, you're going to hear the pages turn because it's the book is right by my mic. But the first thing in here is I just put this in here because I love Boris Kojo. And back in those times, this is 96, I was a huge fan of Boris Kojo as far as looking at him. I had a calendar that was full of his pictures. And I forgot to put that. There we go. I had a calendar full of his pictures, and I really liked looking at him. So here he is in an advertisement for African Pride, but he's nice to look at. So moving on. All right. So the features page, of course, Fuji's are on the front. They are talking about the name of that article is Ready or Not. They do a write up on Diana King. Dennis Rodman is also a featured article, which is part of the double issue. So June, July, they have two main features, which is the Fugees and Dennis Rodman. I don't know. I don't remember if they had a second edition of this same magazine with Dennis on the front. I don't remember. Back in those times, I was a huge Fugees fan, so that's really all I cared about. So I don't remember if there was, but if someone from back then remembers that, I'm sure you guys will let me know that. Again, the next page is just more of the table of contents, and some of the stuff I'm just putting in here for you guys just to see what's in the magazine. It's not really of any super importance. Okay, so again, here's another thing. These are just some advertisements. D'Angelo was doing an ad for Lugs. If you guys remember Lugs shoe line. but they also did clothing, as you can see him in that. Mecca was also another line that was popular back then. Um, I remember lugs, to be honest, the shoes were semi-popular. I do remember some of the kids getting laughed at when they would show up with lug boots instead of like Tim's or something, but I really wasn't that much into um I was into clothes and fashion like that, but not really. I didn't, we couldn't afford like all everything that came out during that time. So I got what I got. So I really wasn't that concerned about other styles and or other brands that I knew I wasn't gonna get. This next one is okay. So I've talked about several times now, uh, us not having the internet. Now, the internet was around. There was, you could get on the internet dial up. Most of us had AOL, but we didn't use the internet the way the internet is used today. So we still had a lot of phone in interaction with, if we want to get information on entertainment. So the Vibe line was an opportunity for you to call in and listen to some of your favorite artists, kind of get a preview on any of their music that was coming out. So as you can see here, if you can see, it might be little, but they have Escape on here, Sweet Sable, Luke, Mint Condition, The Lost Boys, Bone Thugs and Harmony, um, the Sunset Park soundtrack. What else is on here? Mac is that Mac Mall? I'm not sure who that is. Maze featuring Frankie Beverly, but I believe I called this one time, and I feel like, and again, my memory is not that great, but I feel like I would call in and it was like literally seconds of each song, very, very short, and it will either go through the album or like give you like a few songs off that album, whatever. But you would call in and it would play a recording of the album. Also, some of the new releases that were coming out during this time, Uncle Luke was dropping. There was this rapper, kind of kid rapper named Shaheem. So that's that on there. Sweet Sable was releasing. So pretty much some of the people I just named on the Vibe 411, the Vibe line, not 411, but the Vibe line are some of the people that they have featured for having new songs or new albums. Yella from NWA is on there. I talked about the Sunset Park soundtrack, which is a very good soundtrack. If you guys have not heard that, or maybe you haven't even heard of the movie, it was starring Fredro Starr from Onyx. It was about like back in the I keep wanting to keep saying back in the day. I guess it was a while ago, but it was a lot of these like white ladies coming to these schools and giving these inner city schools a better life or a better opportunity for different things. So Sunset Park was about this basketball team, but I can't not now I'm forgetting the main character. Who else was in the Bokeem Woodbine? Was he in that? Y'all don't get me the line. See, this is why I don't like just coming off the top of the dome trying to remember stuff. But let me look. Sunset Park. And this is not even important, but I'm gonna look it up anyway. Sunset Park. Fredro Starr, Terrence Howard, Antoine Tanner, who they used to call Slim. He was on One Tree Hill, if y'all ever watched that, but he was in a lot of different things. Melinda Williams is in it. Guy Torrey was in it. Talent Harris. Um, for some reason, I thought Bokeem, Bokeem Woodbine was in this, but maybe not. That was a very long time ago. Besides that, soundtrack was fire. All right, that's the point. Here's some more advertisements. This is the K-Swiss. Now, the reason I put the K-Swiss in here, I don't know where you guys grew up, but where I grew up in Michigan, a place called Benton Harbor, Michigan. I don't know what it was about these K-Swiss classics, but they had a chokehold on me and my age group when these came out. I was in high school when these came out. And it's not the canvas one that the seems like the girl is wearing. People did have the canvas ones, but the ones we wore out were the leather classics, the white ones. You had to have white. They had to be like bright white. They could never be dirty. They were cheap, so you can get them, like you can keep replacing them. But those during that time when they came out, those had a hold on us. It was those and the Air Force Ones is mainly what we wore. And you could get them in black, but white was that was just the thing that you had to have a white pair of K Swiss classics. And maybe it was just in my little corner of Michigan. I'm not sure if that was like a fashion thing all over the nation, but for us, that had a chokehold on us. Next is Nas modeling some Carl Kanai. Carl Kanai was a big thing in the 90s, a big clothing line. And then this is just a little write up about mainly I put this on here because Lil Kim, and it was just talking about her spending time in the studio with Notorious Big. They were working on some music together. They talked about doing a new remix for Junior Mafia's hit song that was out during that time, which was Get Money. Um, and they just talked about how Little Kim was kind of like Biggie's protege, or he was really working with her solo endeavors and things like that. So nothing super important, but I just thought I'd put that in there. Little Kim in the studio. Next, of course, in all these magazines, you're going to find, ooh, I don't know why I left this out. I didn't see this, but I'll show you guys in a second. I just turned the page and realized I forgot something. But in the mix, so people around town, you got Jody Watley. Who else do I see? Monica, Babyface. Looks like that's probably Tracy, his wife, Mary J. Blige. Um, Shaka Khan, D'Angelo, Stevie Wonder, Natalie Cole. Who else do we have in here? Um, the guy in the top, your top right with the abs. I didn't know who that was at first, but that is Melly Mel, um, who was very prominent in the rap game, one of the pioneers. But yes, look at that. Biz Marquis is in here. Isaac Hayes, Teddy Riley. Oh, that looks like Guy. And yeah, so that's just some little pictures around town. Now this, okay, y'all. I forgot to put this in here, which I think is wild. So let me go here real fast. This, hold on, let me see if I can. Do y'all see this? Little Shop of Horrors. That is what you think it is. This is a write up about this guy's shop that they literally sold the Ku Klux Klan gear. This is where people went. This is one of the places people went to buy their Klan gear, which is crazy. This was in South Carolina. The owner was John Howard. He was an imperial emperor of the Fraternal Rights for the Invisible Empire, International Keystone Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. That's a lot. And the proprietor of the Redneck Shop, billed as the world's only Klan museum. So it was a museum, but they sold all this paraphernalia. And that's crazy. All right. Moving on. Moving on. That was crazy. What else have we got? Oh, Nutty Professor soundtrack. Like if you guys ever listen to my podcast, I don't know if you do, but check it out. Um, I did a podcast episode about soundtracks. It was part of my Whatever Happened to series. And I talked about whatever happened to soundtracks, because soundtracks used to be the thing. We were anticipating the soundtrack more than we were anticipating the movie. Because you're wondering which one of our stars is going to be featured on this soundtrack. It used to be a really big deal to be featured on these soundtracks because we had the um the Bodyguard soundtrack, Waiting to Exhale soundtrack, Titanic soundtrack. Those soundtracks were breaking records for being number one, and then the artist featured on it would get, popularity and get sales and all those things. So it was a big thing to be featured on a soundtrack, and plus they were just dope. So even if the movie maybe wasn't that good, the soundtracks would do well. Like High School High, that's still one of my favorite soundtracks. I talked about Sunset Park. Nutty Professor had a good soundtrack. Case featuring Foxy Brown, Richie Rich, LL Cool J. It was a good soundtrack. So if y'all haven't ever heard that, look it up. But I just put that in there because again, magazines were our main source of information. We did not utilize the internet, and the internet wasn't we didn't utilize the internet as much, but um we hadn't transitioned into finding all our information on, we didn't have Google back then to just type something in and all this information would pop up. There was a lot of kind of searching and finding if you wanted to find something on the internet, but magazines is where we went. So you would have your advertisements for clothes, have your advertisements for music and things like that found in these magazines. Another little nod to the old school. Do y'all remember Swatch watches? Now, these watches are a little bit more like in depth. Like when they first came out, they were very much like loud neon colors. They were cool because you can see through them. The big thing was that you can switch out the bands on them and faces and stuff and match them up to different things. But then they became more fashionable. So these are just I guess different types of swatch watches to kind of match different countries and things like that. So I just put that in there because I thought that was I remember Swatch watches. I had a Swatch watch phone. So it was a see-through phone because that was the whole thing about Swatch watches were that they were see-through. Where are we at? Okay, who's up next? So we have a tribe called Quest and Killer. These are people that Vibe felt that were next up, and they were right. Bounty Killer had a really good career. Reggae's never not been popular, but reggae had a really big push in the late 90s to like early 2000s. Um, Probably mid 90s to early 2000s because I remember like jamming out to Patra, and I think Patra came out uh was I in high school or was I in college by then? I'm just gonna say mid 90s to early 2000s. Again, y'all, if y'all know, leave it in the comments, and I'm sure y'all will let me know or tell me personally. But Tribe Called Quest and Bounty Killer were some of the artists they felt were up next. Then we get to the feature. The featured article is about Fugees. This is one of the writers, Sasha Jenkins, pretty much went on tour with Fugees for a few dates, and this is what they wrote up about it. So they kind of just, I'm not going to go in depth in this interview because it's not like a whole lot. It's more so like what this person is saying. Let me see. This little part is the second Tuesday in March, stop 2 on a North American tour. The Fugees are headlining. Philadelphia's Roots are representing 2, and when the tour gets back on American soil, and so will Atlanta's Goody Mob and Philadelphia's Bahamadia. Do y'all remember Bahamadia? Y'all don't? Y'all missing out. Bahamadia was so dope. If you mix just like, I don't want to say jazz, but it's just like a kind of like Diggable Planets, like coffee shop hip hop. But she had mad, like her lyrics were mad good. I'm gonna do an episode on some of my favorite female rappers from back in the day on my podcast. So look out for that. But I loved Bahamadia. But it says in hip hop, where there are few smiles, flowers, or clowns, the Fuji show is on par with Ringling Brothers, the greatest variety show on earth. They don't rhyme to a DAT. They don't pace the stage gripping their crotches, and they aren't cruising 30 seconds into, or I'm sorry, cursing 30 seconds into the first song about how fucked up the sound is. They just talk about how different Fugees are when they perform, as far as kind of how they set themselves apart from most rap groups. They were really different. And you can go to YouTube and look up some of their performances. I remember being so hyped watching them perform at the Apollo when the Apollos used to come on Saturday nights. At least where I lived, it came on Saturday night, like at midnight, I believe. And you always stayed up so you can watch, the people try to sing or rap or dance or whatever and see if they were going to get booed off. And then you stay for the musical guest. So when Fuji's were on there, it was just so dope. A lot of times they would start, like this particular show, they started performing. People really weren't like into it. All of a sudden, Wyclef stops and he goes into a freestyle. Now, he speaks several languages. Well, first of all, Lauren, they stop the show. He tells Lauren to freestyle. She starts freestyling, and then he takes over Wyclef, and then he starts rapping in all these different languages, and then they start playing this beat, and then the crowd is getting up, is hype. Check it out on YouTube. I'm sure you can find it if you just type in Fuji's Apollo, and I'm sure it'll pop up. But that's how they got the crowd going. They were so different. They had live instruments on stage. Wyclef plays everything. He several times he would pull out his guitar, play that. He'd play it with his mouth. Um, it was like a whole show. Everyone's talented. It was like a feel good type thing. So this is what this the writer of this article is talking about, is describing in this article. Now, a couple of things. Let me see. I wanted to point out, they talked about the beginning of the Fugees, how they got their start, which I thought was interesting because I didn't really remember. I kind of remember, but I really didn't. But let me see. It says New Jersey's prestigious Columbia High School is where Lauren and Praz, both from suburban, or let me say that again. New Jersey's, I can't speak. New Jersey's prestigious Columbia High School is where Lauren and Praz, both from suburban South Orange, first met in 1988. He says, I had this brilliant idea that two girls and one nigga would be the bomb shit. Initially, it was me and this girl, Marcy. We were supposed to get this girl named Tara, but I didn't like her attitude. So Marcy was like, I know this other girl, but she's real young. Lauren, he came to find out, was all of 12 years old. I was like, what? Says Praz. But good old Marcy was persistent. This girl can sing, urged the ex Fuji fifth Beatle. She's bad. Needless to say, he'll fit the part. Now it was a matter of Wyclef stepping into the frame. I always used to meet up with Clef at church in Jersey, says Praz, in a Toronto hotel room. He would say, yo, man, when I get a record deal, I'm going to put you on board. Then one day he came to the studio and dropped his vocals on one of our tracks, Sparks Flew. The producer we were working with at the time was like, y'all need to be a group. We said, fuck it, I'd rather deal with my own family anyway. It was Hill, though, the only non Haitian of the crew, who became the refugee with the highest profile. Not only does she MC and sing, she's a junior at Columbia University and also was a burgeoning acting career. having appeared in As the World Turns, as well as Whoopi Goldberg's 1993 Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit. But Heal is not all there. But Hill is not all there is to the Fugees. Hill is a refugee, a fellow worker ant who helps build and protect the planned refugee camp empire. So I originally, for some reason, I thought that Wyclef and Praz had already been working together, and then they found Lauren. I don't. Again, the details are fuzzy on interviews and things like that from back then, but to see that Praz was working with two other girls who he wanted to start a group with, and then they didn't work out. And he ended up with just Lauren, and then Wyclef being someone that just jumped on the track is how they started their group. So that's pretty dope. In here they do talk about like how Lauren is kind of the standout, what they feel is the standout. People are kind of pushing for her or saying that she should go solo and leave the other two. In this particular article, they're saying that's not going to happen. They created magic with the score, which they did, one of the best albums, in my opinion, to come out during that time. And he really catapulted them to stardom because a lot of people don't remember them from Blunted on Reality, which was their first album. Um, People remember the score because it had Fuji Lie on it, Ready or Not, things like that. No Woman, No Cry. So a lot of people know them from the score, which I have back here, which I'm sure you saw in the beginning. But there was talks about Lauren going solo, and then this article is just saying like, nah, um, that's not gonna happen. We're gonna get back in the studio, work on some other things. And then this article just talks about some of the other performers like the Roots and CeeLo, Goody Mob, Bahamadia as they're performing. So that was just a little thing about the Fugees. This is a little write up about Diana King. She was a reggae artist, I believe. Because I don't want to be wrong. I believe she's the one that sings Mercy, Mercy Me off the Bad Boys soundtrack, if y'all ever heard that. Her first single was Shy Guy, and she had an album Tougher Than Love. This was released in 1994 off Columbia. But I used to like her. I mean, I was a singles type person. Again, I didn't get to buy all the albums and things like that. So if things were on the radio, if they released them as singles, I more than likely bought the single. So she was one of the artists that I purchased music from. Then here's the second feature. This is Dennis Rodman. Now, um, Dennis had a lot of troubles. He was really popular during his basketball, the times that he played basketball. I feel like he was a really good basketball player. I'm not the sports girl, but I used to watch sports then. If I'm not mistaken, he won rings with Chicago Bulls back when Jordan was there. He's won rings with the Lakers, and he won rings with San Antonio, if I'm not mistaken. So he was a really good player during his career as a center. And but a lot of people really were not as interested in his basketball career as they were of his things he did off the court, which is wearing makeup, wearing dresses. It was rumors, or I don't know if it ever came out to be true, about him being with Madonna. He also had, struggles with his mental health and things like that, maybe struggles with some substances. So he's had a troubled kind of career still to this day. I think I recently saw him on a reality show, and you can tell that he's kind of still struggling with things, dealing with his kids and the relationships that he's had with their moms and stuff like that. But this was pretty much just talking about that, just trying to get into the mind of Dennis Rodman. This is when he was with the Chicago Bulls still. This is 96. So they're just talking about that and some of the championships that he won with them. Here's another article about Total, and again, I just put them in here just so you can see pictures of the people that are in here as my pages are turning. It just says first they were Biggie's background singers. Now with their slamming debut, Total prove they are definitely more than the sum of their parts. So there's just a little write up about what to expect on their first album, how they became a group, and how they started off singing background Biggie. Um, they were actually background vocals on Juicy and One More Chance. I believe Biggie, uh, where's it their first song, Can't You See? And Biggie was on there, um, starting that off. So all in the Bad Boy family. Another write up about Al Green. Al Green has been in the game for years and years and years and years. So in '96, to see him still making music, he's a legend in the game. If you don't know about Al Green, I need you to look that up because he's definitely someone that um, is in the history of Black music and deserves to get, you know, he deserves for you guys to know about him. So look him up if you haven't heard of him, but not going to get into the article. I just wanted to show that. More in here is just a little write up about Cheryl Swoops, one of my favorite basketball players. I watched her at all the Olympics when she got into the WNBA during its start. It started in '96. Well, they had their first season in '96. She played for the Houston Comets. I still have her jersey. Had the opportunity to meet her. Very cool. People know that the some of the most popular female basketball players during that time were Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie, Cynthia Cooper, Don Staley, Rebecca Lobo. Those were some of the top players because of their college careers, and then plus some of them played in for the Olympics, which they won medals for our country. And the next thing is just a advertisement again. This is for Chris Rock for his HBO comedy hour. What's next? I always love to show like what was hot in tech during that time. And definitely, and I don't know if you guys can see that real clear, but definitely the little, I don't want to call it a boom box. It was like a tape deck. Um, and it was remote control. So this one was a Panasonic mini stereo system, and it has, let me see, that stereo system up top went for $499.95. It had a 60 disc CD changer, speakers, AM, FM radio, tape deck, and all that good stuff. It was small and compact. So a lot of us growing up had those very tall, like record players that our parents had that were like tall as like TV consoles. And then you move over to the big tape deck that was also like that. But this was like a all in one. It had the speakers. It was a 60 CD changer, which is, mind blowing back then because you can put all these CDs in here. You can program it, play whatever you want. You don't have to worry about pulling the CD out, putting the new one in, and all that stuff. You put all your favorite CDs in there, and then you can just play like. And you had a remote, like that was like groundbreaking. And a lot of us had those in college. That was like the thing to have. You had to have one of these in your dorm so you can play all the songs, have all your CDs in there, and it was wonderful. So that was a big thing. Let's see. This was they talked about CD-ROM. CD-ROM was again another big thing as far as our tech and computers were concerned. Um, we used to get, and I forgot the name of the company, but we used to get these CDs. Pretty much, you will put it in your computer and download or load what was on that disc, And then it would be, I think this one was an entertainment magazine. I just can't remember the name of it, but you could read articles. Everything was like a one-stop shop. You can read articles. They had new music there. They had like a fashion section. You just click around on your computer the different icons on this page that would load up, and then it would give you all this information. So this one is the Beat Experience. If you suffer, I'm not gonna read all that. It says the Beat Experience is a CD-ROM for you, produced in conjunction with Beat Culture and New America. The Beat Experience emphasizes content over bells and whistles, available in Mac and Windows versions. It'll hip you to Charlie Parker, abstract expressionism, experimental film, and those age-old favorites, sex and drugs. Um, this was so the CD-ROM pretty much was a program that you would use. It give you a CD and you can do different things with it. Like I said, I had mine for some kind of entertainment magazine. Like I said, I cannot remember. I would get one once a month, and you would just load it on your computer. So there was just making your computer be more interactive because we didn't have a lot of that. Um, as the computer started to be a little bit more popular, this was just something to add to the technology of using your computer. This was the ASCAP class of 96. So those that were the ASCAP is, let me get to the page so I don't get it wrong. ASCAP is the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. The word on the street and the message is clear. The word ASCAP. The message, the hottest raps, the coolest rhymes, the smoothest R&B, and the funkiest beats are all coming at you straight from the mouths of our members. Now that you know, spread the word. So they were inducted into this ASCAP membership for songwriting. And you have Whitney Houston, Bone Thugs and Harmony, Coolio, D'Angelo, Naughty by Nature, Salt and Pepper, Criss Cross, Jermaine Dupri, Dr. Dre, Fugees. It has a symbol because that's when the artist formerly known as Prince went by the symbol. Shaggy, Mary J. Blige, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, The Lost Boys, Queen Latifah, TLC, Jodeci, Quincy Jones, Stevie Wonder, and Escape. And those were all the members in that were inducted in 1996. Then here are some new releases during that time. So the Isley Brothers, Young Z, Jesse Powell, MC Ren, Yella, and who else? Not pictured here. Prince was on the Girl Six soundtrack. He did the Girl Six soundtrack. Ice-T, Heather B. Now the 20 questions. Now this is sometimes a hit or miss on the 20 questions because these are dated. This is 96. So some of these may make sense, some of these maybe not, but I'm going to read them anyway because they are in the magazine and I want to. So, number 1, isn't Coolio the reincarnation of MC Hammer? Why doesn't LaShawn appear in the video for LL Cool J's Doing It? Which was a big thing back then. Like, why did he have someone else and not the actual person who was saying doing it and doing it and doing it well? But anyway. And why is LL giggling and presumably licking his lips after every track on Mr. Smith? Does he know something we don't? We know opportunities are far and few between, but isn't the sublime Dave Chappelle playing himself big time on ABC's extra tiered buddies? Exactly when and why are surveillance cameras supposed to make us feel safe? What is it about new Hugo Boss suit that just works? Is it us or has Urban Outfitters finally beaten out Barnes and Noble bookstores as the hot pickup spot? Speaking of all things urban, are we the only ones who have a problem with the fact that Urban Decay has 2 lipstick colors called Bruise and Asphyxia? Doesn't Tupac's voice on All Eyes on Me often sound exactly like E40's? Seriously, the show can be corny, but isn't Family Matters Jaleel Urkel White the most underrated slapstick comedian in the world? Why are folks so open on that sheer t-shirt Tony Rich sports in his chic video for Nobody Knows? Isn't it a little too soon for Marky Mark nostalgia? Which wedded R&B diva dyed her hair black and had to go back to platinum blonde because black made her look too pale? Hmm. Um, is it Faith? I don't know. And speaking of singers, hasn't Mary J. Blige been looking fly lately and still does? Could it be because her Not Gonna Cry is the new female national anthem? Or is Joe smiling because all the things your man won't do is about to bump Not Gonna Cry as the song to break up to? Who's that dancing with joy now that Halle Berry is the new Revlon spokesmodel, not Dave Justice or Veronica Webb? Ooh. And speaking of folks who could model, when did Large Professor get so fine? If it's not true and Bad Boy denies it, why do we keep hearing that Notorious Big is seriously recording and plans to release a new album, maybe called Life After Death, in time for Halloween? And sorry, but could you die laughing while watching Fox's The Tick or what? So those are the 20 questions. These were some summer jams, some songs that they wanted to, they thought that were worthy of us knowing about. So just a few of them, some things they wanted us to look out for. Eric Sermon's Double or Nothing, Funkmaster Flex, the mixtape volume 1, 60 minutes of funk. They already had talked about Fugees, Dog Pound is in here, Tupac is in here, Goody Mob, Waiting to Exhale soundtrack was something to look out for. Deborah Cox, Quincy Jones, Q's Juke Joint, another great album. Immature, their new album, LaBouche, the Tony Rich Project, and Najee. So those were some of the jams or artists they wanted us to look out for during that time. And last but not least, these two things, just something quick. The Slam It or Jam It, something that Sprite did. You would call this line, let me get to that page. You would call this line and then you would vote for what songs you thought were good, Slam It or Jam It. And then the winners would get a feature in the magazine, and also it would be something that Sprite would promote. So you had George Clinton, A Plus, Monifa, Groove Collective, Tina Marie, Easy E, UBU. And so you would call in the number and then you would use the code to vote for who you thought, and you would slam it or jam it. So that was something they did. Sprite was a part of. And the last thing is just, it says just the facts. These are this was just talking about how the Jackson family, um people were sleeping on the Jackson family. They didn't I don't they felt like people didn't really realize how much the Jackson family had produced. So you have the the Jackson 5, the Jacksons, who had 23 top 20 pop singles, 18 albums. You had Rebe, who recorded 3 solo albums. Her biggest hit was Centipede in 1994, it was top 24. You had Jackie Jackson, who recorded 2 solo albums. Tito, we know Tito. His claim to fame is that he had these 3 sons, 3T, who were like a big deal during our time as a boy band. Jermaine Jackson, of course, he had 6 top 20 singles, 13 solo albums. This is at the time of 96. His best-selling album was a self-titled, it went gold, and his biggest hit was Let's Get Serious, which hit number 9. LaToya Jackson had 4 solo albums. Um, what? Her claim to fame is that Philadelphians threw bottles at her during her 1996 live Exotic Club tour. Oh my God, leave Latoya alone. Marlon recorded one solo album. His biggest hit was called Don't Go. Michael, of course, the biggest pop star ever. At that time, he had 11 solo albums. He had 12 number one singles. His biggest accomplishment was Thriller, was 24 times platinum. Randy Jackson had 2 solo albums. They say he doesn't have a claim to fame. Janet, of course, we all know Miss Jackson, if you're nasty. She had at that time 5 solo albums. She had 7 number one hits. And her biggest accomplishment was Janet Dot. That was 6 times platinum. And then 3T recorded 1 album and they had 1 top 20 single, which was called Anything. So they were saying sleep on the Jacksons if you want to. And that concludes the review of this magazine. So let me get back to hold on here. Back to the beginning here. So that concludes this edition of the 1996 June, July Vibe magazine. So featuring the Fugees and Dennis Rodman. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, I just do this for fun. I do this because I like to reminisce and it's a good time for me. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for subscribing. I got some subs from the last one. Thank y'all for like blowing up the one I did with Left Eye from Sister to Sister magazine. That's been kind of blowing up. I really appreciate all the views. I appreciate the comments and the feedback, and keep it coming. I have much more for you guys. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and end it. Oh, if you look down here at the ticker, you see the ticker down there. You can catch me online. You can go to my website. My main website is jaysquick3pod.com. That's where all my social media is. That's where all my episodes for my podcast is. So if you haven't heard my podcast, you want to check it out, go to jaysquick3pod.com. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on TikTok. I do have the ads at the bottom, but you can also go to my website and that'll be on the top of the screen. Just click on it. If you want to send me a voice note, that's on there. If you want to email me, if you want to contact me for anything, all that information is on my site. So again, thank y'all for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. And I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.